Hi, I'm musical scientist. Let me try to figure out my settings here. Hello to all of you. Um, back from a long break. Um, hey, who's here? Let's see, we got Ann Smith. We have Ewa Jessic, Sophios, Atomic J, Daniela, Zach, Evan, Lyrical. Yeah, Bryce. Dark mood today. I wasn't sure whether to do a stream today. I did. I took yesterday off. As you will be aware. Yeah, I just noticed that my light wasn't on. I was like, you know what, we're gonna go with it. I took yesterday off just because I don't know. I felt like we were. It was a crazy day in the morning. We started potty training my nephew in completely unrelated events to the entire news cycle and everything going on. And we were it was just an exhausting day. And then I came back and tried to get a handle on what was going on in the news, and quickly realized that I needed to take a bunch of time to I don't know, process the entire sort of world political the the death of George Floyd and the protests that are happening in the States, and the peaceful and unpeaceful, mostly unpeaceful responses, and so. I don't know. I'm not sure how much it helped. I think it. I don't know. So today, a lot of people on the internet are actually are kind of taking a day, like a blackout day, as it were, to kind of let the conversation of the within the States, and particularly like the voices of the Black community in the States, like, have their moment. I felt like I wasn't sure I was willing to, I don't know, abandon you guys for 2 days in a row, having already done that yesterday. But I don't know, we might take some time to just talk about, I don't know, our perspectives, especially for people all over the world. Yeah, I don't know. I'm feeling. What am I feeling? I'm feeling lost, to be honest. Like, I don't know if because we've got people here from all over the world. I'm not sure how much of what's happening here in North America is reaching you. I presume that it's becoming pretty common in the news, especially seeing some of the things that are happening to reporters in the States. Yeah, but for those of you who are somehow unaware, who have not been keeping up, last Monday there was a very brutal police killing in the U.S. in Minneapolis, of a man named George Floyd, who was basically was had his neck knelt upon until he was dead, and the whole thing, is captured on video. Everyone, I guess, who has had the stomach to watch it has watched it, and unsurprisingly, unsurprisingly, the Black community in the U.S. is not standing for such a thing, right? Especially in it's just like there's this constant news cycle of like Black people getting killed in the U.S. by police, and I know that there is no, I know that being a police officer is difficult and whatever. No, I don't mean whatever. Like generally, definitely is. I would like. It's so much larger. The problem in the U.S. is so much larger um, than the police, right? Like level 0 is the police. It's it's the raw fact where the fact meets the outrage. Is this video, right? It's and this thing that happened, right? That like one officer killed a person like in cold blood on the street while 3 other officers watched and a whole bunch of people tried to get him to stop. Um, that's like that's where that's level 0, and then level 1 is like how do you like how do you have people in positions of power that will do that, right? Um, I don't know. This is. I feel like it feels to me like it. I don't know. As a former Catholic, it feels like it rhymes a bit with the Catholic Church, like sexual abuse scandal, right? Where it's like, you don't have to have that many people doing horrible things if if the entire rest of the institution is doing nothing to stop them, right? Um, like it could be that I don't know. I really don't know what police culture is like, right? Like it could be rotten to the core. It could be that there are, like 90% of police officers are doing their, are like trying their best, and they're stuck in maybe they're stuck in a system that they hate, or maybe there's, like whatever it is. Um, that's like what I've seen with the Catholic Church, being a former Catholic, is that it doesn't matter how many good people you have, if you're not dealing with the people who are truly horrible, who are like the whatever it is, the like 5% who are doing all of the abuse or whatever it is. Like it does. I mean, in the Catholic Church, it was tiny. It wasn't 5%. It's like 0.1% or 0.01% or something ridiculous. But it doesn't matter. Like if the whole institution doesn't have a mechanism for taking those people out, and in fact like acts as a home for those people, like the stats on police officers getting fired and like rehired in other precincts and whatever, or the same precinct, it's like the same thing that we saw we saw in the Catholic Church with priests getting moved around all over the place, and like abusive priests gets known about, and instead of being dealt with, they get a reprimand, they get moved out of their jurisdiction essentially into somewhere else. And so no wonder, like that's of course you're not going to have any trust in the institution, because you shouldn't have any trust in an institution that you can't trust to protect you from itself, let alone everybody else, right? So that's level 0. That's level 1. Level 2 is, how did you get there, right? Like in the church, I think that the church got there by wanting to protect its image, by valuing, like it's a lot of the same things. I think it's like valuing the the habit or the badge or the image of the institution more than the institution itself, and the image of what you're doing to sort of the outward masses. If you can mollify them and keep them satisfied, then you can turn a blind eye to people that you're hurting. And I don't know, because there's such a there's a large contingent in like, I don't know, what am I trying to say? I don't know if any of it makes any sense to me. If I'm trying to I feel like this is my problem. It's like I don't know. I'm usually pretty good at figuring out what's going on. Um, but there's this huge kind of meta problem that like we've seen building in a whole bunch of different ways, right? So there's how do you get there in terms of like a police force, right? Um, and one of the ways you get there is by not taking care of a community. It's like if you don't take care of a community, then you don't have like then your community has very limited options, right? So like if you ask conservatives like or people who are I don't know whoever if you ask someone, hey, what like why are there so many police officers doing like crazy stuff, like abusive things within black communities in the states, they'll say, well, because those communities are full of violence, right? um and that's like that's true of a lot of definite. I don't know of all places, all black communities in the states, but like when I don't have much experience with the U.S. Last time I was in the U.S. was for VidCon. I had two Uber drivers on the way to Anaheim. I got to LA. I had one Uber driver to Anaheim and one person on the way back. Um, and both were black and both had stories about being like held at gunpoint by like one had been this lady had been a like a bus driver in her in LA for a few years, and she was like people come on the bus at with guns, and I'm terrified, and I'm trying to figure out how to like get my keep my kids from falling into gangs. Um, and that's so like there's a level of analysis that's very nice if you want to scapegoat people, which is to stop there and be like, oh, look at these communities, they're so full of crime, they're so full of violence, gangs are controlling them, we need to send the police in with like assault weapons and with full jurisdiction to slam people against their wall. And you know um yeah, that's kind of the level that people who kind of want to justify this stop at. And then you go a level down, you're like, well, how did these communities get like that, right? And the way that these communities get like that is that you have an entire society that's optimized for not them, right? That's how it is now. Like for hundreds of years in the US, it was we are literally keeping you down. Like stay there. You don't get nice things. You don't get nice neighborhoods. You like, I mean, first of all, it's like you're literally slaves, and then okay, you're not slaves anymore, but you can't you can't be in any of our places or have any of our stuff. And then it's like, okay, you can be in our places and have our stuff, but now try to climb up in a system that's like try to climb up in a system where the rich get richer, right? The Matthew principle is a well-known principle of economics, right? It's something that comes from the Bible, actually, from when he to whoever has more will be given, and whoever has nothing, even what they have will be taken away. That's like a Bible quote, but it's kind of a fact of life. But it's definitely a fact of a capitalist system, right? And so, I'm not an anti-capitalist myself. I mean, like I think I'm something like a Canadian liberal moderate, right? Because I don't see any other I don't really see any other way for like growth to happen and for resources to increase than systems that involve markets. But if you put a whole bunch of people at zero in a system where you have to get some amount, you have to have some amount to get anywhere, and then you continue to keep in place, you know, um, things like redlining, where once again you had to like I can't I don't really know the technical definition of redlining, but the back and forth of it is basically confining people to pseudo ghettos, um, and even things like the drug war, where you make a whole bunch of laws that can apply to everybody, but then you know you specifically police black neighborhoods or minority neighborhoods, or you specifically police the types of drugs um, that a certain portion of the population is into, or you know, or yeah. I mean, it's such a common trope in the States, right? About um, like if I get busted for marijuana, I'll get brought home to my parents, and a black guy gets busted for marijuana 3 times, he goes to jail for 50 years, right? So like no wonder that it's it's hard to get a leg up, and then like the other thing that a drug war does, for example, is that it gives a huge economic incentive to like cartels and to gangs to get started, um, because there's like anything that's illegal has a huge market value, especially if there's like a demand, and a demand like in the entire country, right? Um, and that's like who's gonna fill that demand. It's gonna be people who are willing to break the law, and where are they going to do it? It's going to be where it's going to be like I don't know, where they can trust the public to turn a blind eye, right? And so, what's the result of the drug war? It's gangs in black neighborhoods, and then I don't know. There's just like this giant meta problem, right? Like that's one example, but every facet of America is, and I mean Canada's not excused from this, right? Canada has its own problems. Like our biggest population that we're failing is the indigenous, like the native peoples of Canada, who were never enslaved, but were definitely told, definitely attempted. We definitely had some nice attempts to like destroy their culture, and but it's like you put people at zero, and then you say lift yourself up like everybody else. This is a system where everyone can make it, and then every chance that they get, you demonize it, right? Even and that's like the other crazy thing about that is that like there's a way in which societies, like all the cool things, like all the, I don't know, like culture tends to come from weird like subgroups within societies. It doesn't tend to come from mainstreams. It tends to come from something kind of marginalized, something beyond the norm. That's when that's where that's where cool comes from. That's where culture comes from a lot of the time, right? And so American culture, and by extent all of like a lot of Canadian culture, is like built on not just like it's weird. It's not only built on the like contributions of the black community in the States, but it's also in a weird way, it's built on keeping the black community like suffering and marginalized, and like in that their only way out is to be like to create culture, create music and art, and like that's kind of like it's kind of like an appropriate escape. So like you can see that in all of rap culture, right? Where it's like no wonder 50 Cent is rapping about like get rich or die trying, and through music. 'Cause that's how, like, it's like the kind of you can there's this weird thing where, like, black artists in the States can become superstars for their art, but they can't become, like, uh, middle class citizens. Um, and so here I am playing blues licks. You know, uh, uh, an art form that sprung out of the black community. The blues scale probably comes from a mix of black and indigenous music, because African music is more major based, and the like indigenous chants, or like Native American chants, are actually a lot of the time more pentatonic based, and so probably what happened was there was like a fusion between those two cultures that kind of gave birth to the blues. I mean, a cappella itself was, like, barbershop. All of barbershop is a art form that came out of the black community. Beatboxing, rapping, everything I do on here is like it's out of American culture, and American culture is fundamentally like it is weirdly. I mean, I don't know, weirdly, but like disproportionately, like black culture and other minority cultures, like LGBT culture has been a huge mover and shaker of social influence there. So I'm not super into the idea of, like, having art that's exclusive to a particular culture. You know, like the frankly, it's it seems blatantly, I don't know, it seems pretty blatantly racist to me to say, like white people can't play the blues, right? But on the other hand, if you have a community that you're valuing their cultural contribution as the foundation of your entire culture, with the one hand, and you're keeping them in that place so they can never fulfill their own dreams, that's a pretty big failure of the system, right? Like, that's you like, the ideal is that everyone's on equal footing, and then everyone can share everyone else's cultures and play everyone else's music and everything. But I can see why there's a whole school of thought of, like, until this stuff is rectified, those of us, us white people, who are using that culture's contributions, we have an obligation to try and lift black people up. So we're kind of lifting ourselves up on what they've done, right? So that's one sort of philosophical aspect of it. I'm scared at the moment because, like, it's no wonder that people are protesting, and whenever there's a large enough protest, it's going to become violent, right? It's just a law of large numbers that, well, it's two things. It's a law of large numbers, and it's a fact that when protests become violent, almost always, like, the police respond with violence, and that begets more violence, right? So it's an unstable system. It's like there's this pencil. I don't know. There's this stick balanced on its edge, um, and uh, you can balance it here in a state of nonviolence if you want, um, but and it can be done, right? Like you can balance a stick on its edge, but it's not surprising if it tips over, because if you get a little wobble this way and there's something to amplify that wobble and something to amplify that wobble, then it falls all the way down. And that's what happens if you've got a situation where one person throwing a water bottle leads to a police response of tear gas, which leads to a crowd response of bricks, which leads to a police response of. In some of these cases, I have now seen videos on Twitter over the past day of both police cars like literally ramming into people, um, into protesters, and of at least one protester ramming into a police car, like a protester car ramming in, like trying to run over a police officer. Um, so like it's kind of, I don't know, it's just a fact that these things are going to become violent, and what terrifies me is that violent protests are not, they're not taken well by the general public, because violence is awful, and they're a great excuse for someone who wants to flex their authoritarian presidency to flex it harder, you know, like. And that's the problem, is that there's no law of the universe that says that things that are very understandable lead to good outcomes. And that's kind of like, when I look at this, that's what I'm struggling with, is that like I you know I don't entirely understand, but what the black community feels like. I certainly don't entirely understand, but I understand that I've got angry enough to you know to lash out, and like, especially if you start off trying to be peaceful and then the response of the people you're trying to peacefully protest to is to be violent. um you know I like, we in Quebec did that over college tuition. Right, we were um we no we did it because the Quebec government was going to raise our tuitions by 100% over 5 years, and that was enough for us. you know, I didn't do much of those protests, because even then I was like, I don't think this is going to work, and it didn't work in the end. Um, it was enough that we switched governments, and then the second government did the exact same thing the first government was going to do, but just tacitly. Um, so that's the thing. Like I'm afraid that this makes the spiral worse. Um, Spiral towards whatever, I don't know, a completely dysfunctional North America. I'm afraid that it makes it worse, um, and that because like, that's the case because it's justified, because there's like there's justified anger. Um, the like there's no stopping it. If it were a few people that were angry for no reason, then it would, like, I don't know. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying. Let's talk. I'm going to talk to you guys for a bit. Sean Neal says it had to get worse to get better. Nonviolent protests have not affected change for 70 years. It was bound to boil over. Yeah, Sean, you're right. It was. Um, but it's like, yeah, I'm not happy that it got to this point. I understand why it's gotten to this point. Um, I don't, like, I look at how, I don't know, how it's gone in other situations. And it's like, okay, well, sometimes, I don't know, if you've got a regime that's like somewhat amenable to you, and you're protesting, and the protests become violent, and there become like police standoffs with the community, then it seems to work. But if you've got a regime that isn't that isn't amenable to that, then you get something like the Arab Spring in Saudi Arabia, where it's like mercilessly crushed because like realistically, if the state wants to the U.S. is the largest military in the world, and if the government wants to beat down a protest, they can beat down a protest. And so with the U.S., it's like it feels like I don't know where on that line it is. Like I think we used to know where it was, but I don't know if we know anymore, because the directives from the Oval Office have been to bring in the military. So, yeah, Evan. So, at some point, I also want to. I think Trevor Noah did a really good video, kind of laying out the psychology of what he's sensing, like for himself and within the Black community. And I think I might want to go pull that up and watch it with y'all at some point. But let's talk a bit more. Sorry, this isn't going to be like a great. I don't know. This isn't going to be super entertaining today. Evan, can we acknowledge that the riots are separate events from the protests, and the rioters are generally a different group of people than the protesters? Yes, I think so. Although I don't know if it makes I don't think it makes a difference. I think there are like in a leaderless movement, you don't have the you don't really have the capability to say what's part of it and what isn't. Like there's no one giving the rules, and it's going to be a hodgepodge of like whatever it attracts and whoever it attracts and whatever philosophies they have. So like I've seen that there are some people who are like principledly nonviolent. I've seen people who are principledly nonviolent, even as violence is, as the police become violent. I've seen people who are principledly nonviolent until the police become violent, which I think is a bit of a distinction, because that was the real power of something like Gandhi's movement, was like having the remaining nonviolent even as people are being violent against you. I've also seen people who are principledly violent, because there's a whole sort of anarchist, Antifa philosophy of principled violence, and I don't really think that philosophy works, but it is the thing. Like it's not that the only people being violent are looters. And then there are people who like this. Everything's messed up. The system is screwed. Let's break stuff and let's get what's ours, right? And that's like it's a big mess. And of course, that's all. So, I mean, yeah. And then there are potentially people who see this as an opportunity to make protesters look bad, who are going to join in and pretend to be protesters. And yeah, it's like all this, like if you get a big enough group of people mobilizing, all this is going to happen every time, it's like predictable that it's going to happen, but there's no one controlling the ship, right? It's not like there's a leader saying we protest now, we stop now, we do things where they want, when we want to. It's just like it's like I don't know. It's like that idea of psychohistory from the Foundation series. Like it's just gonna happen. It's gonna happen, and like I don't know. Like there's I'm really hoping that like the leverage points on these things are like, I hope there are some leverage points within government still that are still like amenable to change, that can say like, hey, here's like 2 or 3 steps down to, you might not get all the way down to like, transforming the whole society, but you could at least get a couple steps down to like, here's how we try to reform a police department, or here's how we um, give the black community a leg up in a way that actually works. uh like there's a really good group of people called Campaign Zero that I shared a thread from on Twitter, who are like specifically like who are getting real, like they have for quite a long time, but are getting real specific about here's what needs to be done, like specifically in the case of like police violence. um I think that kind of thing is really useful if those particular people can gain the ear of particular people in power that can affect this kind of change. The problem is that in a purely, I don't know, like an entirely democratic system, it's even the political system is a sort of psychohistorical sociological system. There's no one really controlling that ship either. So if you get I don't know, if you get an inciting incident that moves you toward chaos, does anyone have the power to stop it? I don't know. And like chaos in this case would not be, I don't know, it would look like what chaos looks like when you have a dictatorial leader, which is generally that the people who had no power before, they get killed. um, it's not. Ann Smith says it would certainly help if we had a leader who actually cares about changing this. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like when you see someone who is in power, who like has the power to change things, um, it's easy to say, well, if only for if only that person were different, everything would be different, right? And sometimes that's true, but that person is also like, they're a result of the entire system optimizing. Like the American system, say, had 300 million people to choose from to see which one of them was going to become the most powerful person in the country, and the collective social phenomenon that is the United States chose this one. Right? So like you can blame, I don't know, you can blame Donald Trump for whatever you want, but the idea that there wouldn't be one Donald Trump within 300 million people is absurd. Right? It's just, so then you go back to the general. It's like, well, how did this get selected? How did you wind up here, right? And that's like what worries me, is that part of what wound the U.S. up in this system was a backlash against the previous round of Black Lives Matter protests. Like it wasn't the whole thing, but it was part of it. It put the fear in people, and like, I mean, it wasn't. I don't think it was primarily that, but I wouldn't say that. I don't know. I don't know if the last round did anything good. Like, I think it raised awareness. Like, it's too soon to tell, right? Like, it set the stage for this round. In the short term, it was definitely used as a rhetorical device through the entirety of that election, right? Like things have gotten even worse under Obama because of all this, you know, protests, and we need someone who can law and order. I don't know. Yeah, prepared more people to march at times. So yeah, it like wasn't the actual half of the. I mean, it was about half. Like there's like you can go deeper than this, right? If you can you can, for example, blame, I don't know, let's blame these 50% of the voters in the U.S. Right? Say we think Donald Trump is the root of the problem, and all of the Republicans are the problem for voting for him. Right? Um, it's I don't know. Like maybe you're right to say that. Um, but if you've got like if you've got 50% of people doing something crazy, there's something there's something you haven't taken into account as to what's going on. Um, and like for example, one of the elements of it is that just like everybody is, like there's a giant majority of people who don't think the system works, right? And they're right, right? like that's the problem, is that like all like everything you're seeing with the Black Lives Matter protests is like like the thing it's pointing to is this system isn't working for us, and lots of people can see that the system isn't working. And the last election was kind of like it kind of became framed as the system versus something else. And I think a lot. Yeah. Let's since we have no mods, let's not let's avoid advocating for killing political leaders, please. Um, that would be nice. I hope my stream doesn't get taken down for me uttering those words. Yeah. What was I talking about? I don't know. I don't know. I've been riffing for an hour. Like, yeah, I think I've expressed my confusion. Let's I don't know. I would still like to hear more of what anyone else is thinking. If there's Alice is asking if I read the Discord chats. Can you tell me where to look, Alice? Lady Dilla says history is full of great convulsions that came unexpectedly after periods of relative calm. Keep an even keel and do what's right. So I've hesitated coming into the voice chats. Because there's two reasons. One is I feel like I am going to upset the balance. And the other is that, like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I can't do a lot of conversation, actually. I'm a person that gets wrung out by conversation. By, like, you know, especially the kind of conversation that has lots of people in it. And I'm already, like, I don't know, I'm having these conversations with my sister, with my brother-in-law, with my roommate, my parents. There's a certain point where I'm like, I don't want to do more of this. I want to, like, by the time I'm done, like, processing this stuff with my family, I want to get away from people and play Portal or something. You're definitely one of the most talkative people in the group. I mean, when I'm on here, yeah, I think I am. I mean, this is a monologue show to a large extent. Oh, that's not good. Also, I think I want to do a production stream today. I don't know. I gotta start doing some work. Yeah. Other things that are going on. I think we're gonna finally get rules in the Discord. I've procrastinated on the rules for long enough that now I'm trying to get the mods to help out. We've had enough incidents that would be useful to have rules. That we're gonna do that, I think. And we'll see. I don't like rules generally, especially not early in a community's growth. Like, I felt like I didn't know what the community was, right? So it's like, how do you make rules for something if you don't know what it is yet? So there might still be blank spaces in the rules. I don't know. We'll see. See what the mods have come up with. I think they've been working on that. Jonathan Haywood says, "Don't be a weighing rod." It's a pretty good rule. I see a lot of variations of that rule. Don't be a jerk. Don't be I don't know. Insert your favorite generic thing for person who be mean. I think I think rules like that slightly take for granted a definition of those words that that might be present in the mind of the world that I don't think is there. you know, yeah, there are ways that there are things that are considered the height of jerkery in some circles that are considered either good fun in other circles or moral, right? So it's always hard. So the problem with vague laws like don't be a jerk is that they tend to become like they just give the power to the whatever dominant culture there is in the server to decide what a jerk means, presuming that their definition is universal when in fact it isn't. So we might need to spell out what it means to be a jerk or not a jerk in our community. Because how do you ban how do you enforce that rule, right? Why did I get banned? You were being a jerk. No, I wasn't. I don't know. We'll get there. Yeah. Should I turn on the light? Let's turn on the light, I guess. We'll be right back. Hey, look at this. Let there be light. It's me. It's me. I exist. Yeah, I don't know if we're gonna talk about rules. I would like to see what people have to say about this in this thing. Because the community isn't made up of the 4 or 5 mods; it's made up of a bunch of us. So, if there's anything in particular, so Zach's thing is no harassment, no trolling, no spamming, no bigotry. Pretty straightforward. Yeah, I think that's been so. Zach, this has been my challenge with trying to write up the rules. Is like, what does that mean? Because all of those are like big plate. Even those are like they're like filler words. They're not filler words, but they're big categories that are like culturally dependent. So what's harassment? What's trolling? What's spamming? What's bigotry? Right? Yeah, we could make it the daily discussion for today. Like, what are good? I don't know if we should like put the rules as they currently are. I think we should do like a draft of, like, at some point put a draft down for comments from people. But maybe the daily discussion today is just what are good rules for the server or for the live chat here and stuff. Well, it sounds like if you're gonna have a rule, Jonathan, then you've got to define it. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm being all or nothing here, but my feeling has been like there's like with the period of kind of no rules, it's like then it's all up to judgment, right? And we can say like, hey, that's you're being a jerk there. Don't do that. Or like, hey, this is spamming. Can you cut it out? And like, as long as sort of the broad community is okay with it, then like you go with that. Lyrical, we should only include what not to do. That's so negative. Put positive things to do. Yeah, we could have guidelines of, like, I've been thinking about one of the other things I wrote in this document that I never actually gave to the mods. Was kind of like guidelines on how to have a like, but it just ended up, it was just sort of my thoughts, which is why it wasn't really a rules system. It was just like my thoughts on how to have conversations on the internet. Like, one of them was just be gracious, right? Especially when you're in an international community that's like going across a whole bunch of cultural and political boundaries, right? Like, there are things that you will probably consider, like, I don't know, that you will have a problem with another person saying that they don't know is a problem to you, and you might say things that are a problem to other people that you didn't think would be a problem to them, and I think, like, to me, it feels like the best way to resolve those issues is less to give one, like, overarching, like, it, and except, like, there are extreme, like, you can sort of make some like put some extremes on it, but I like, I would like that if only 2 or 3 people are in a conversation, they have a broad freedom to set what are the parameters of their discussion, right? Like, I think one of the best rules for this thing would be, you don't have to be in a conversation. I don't know if that makes sense, but like the first step is to, like, try to resolve within a conversation if there's been a conflict. Like, instead of going to the rules and deciding whether or not something was an infraction of the rules, to be like, hey, that's what you said there is unacceptable to me for this reason. And that person, can get a chance to learn and potentially apologize. And if they can't, if you can't agree, that person says, that's, like, your stance is unacceptable to me, and you hit an impasse. The goal of the rules is not to decide who's right and kick the other person out. It's more, you should be able to say, okay, we're not going to be able to talk about this. Let's stop talking, right? That ability to say, like, hey, my first trump card in this conversation is to walk away instead of to like find the rule you broke and try to ban you. I would appreciate if we have something like that. Let's see. Zach says, yeah, analytical, gracious is a vague word. Yeah, I'm trying to spell out what I mean by it. Respectful might be better. Yeah, like, everything is culturally dependent. But yeah, that's like, and that's the other thing that sensitive. Yeah, Zach is pointing out, the sensitive topics chat is good for. Is that it gives you kind of a buffer to be like, okay, well, this is like this is, if we want to continue this, we know that it's, I don't know, we know that it's something we have to hash out that's going to be difficult, where we might get our feelings hurt. Let's both agree to go into the sensitive topics chat and try to resolve it. Let's see. Just allow for that freedom. Seems that your concern is that we'll start following the letter of the law rather than the spirit. Yeah, I think that's more my fear as the community gets larger, right? Like, I've just seen, I think most of my worries on this are coming from I don't know, ContraPoints' Discord server, um, where she eventually like basically had to abandon it because it like grew to the point and somehow developed into a group of people that like despised her, and it was I don't know I don't know if that's but it's like it somehow came to be sort of controlled by people who were very um like legalistic and very sensitive about what things were allowed in the like in that space. um, and you know this is this is a thing that can happen to online creators, and I'm very wary. That's also one of the reasons actually why I'm wary about like I don't know about being super close to this community, like be like in the like I'm a person who like I don't know. Contra, I think, ended up relying on her community, and it became like her support structure, like through the online community. And it's something to think about for all of us because like we're small and I don't know. We seem to be very gracious to each other and like able to resolve things right now. Like you guys have been really good. You've had like good sensitive discussions, and you know even with when people who've you know sort of crossed the line, you've been very good at like seeing what's behind that. Um, but yeah, it's you got to be careful about making your entire support system an online community, because online communities have a way of shifting under your feet, and like it's nice to have I don't know, it's nice to not rely on one thing. Tim needs to link his Twitch to Discord so I can use all my cool emojis there. Is that a thing you can do? Don't do it, it's a trap. What's a trap? I boosted the server so I could try to improve the auto quality of voice chats. And I got access to all the emojis. I don't understand. There are more emojis than the Unicode emojis? All right. So. What's going on over here? Okay. Yeah, we got to. I missed the stream of when you watched the thing that I sent because I missed the stream before that. Raphael, what was the thing you sent? Yeah, I can use emojis from other servers. Oh, you're like, can't. Yeah, people with Nitro do that, right? Do. Okay. In completing the in sort of wrapping up the I don't know, the discussion on the new Black Lives Matter wave, I wanted to just watch I don't know, give a little bit of the space here to somebody else. I wanted to watch together the just the vlog that Trevor Noah did. If that's, I don't know, is that okay with you guys? I feel like you can just go and watch it, I suppose, but um I don't know. Is that weird? Is that too random for us for just to just watch that together to get some, I don't know, because I feel like trigger any rights rules. I don't think so, Anne. But if it does, whatever. Um, I don't think it really. I just have to find it. Is the thing. Be careful with watching stuff on your stream. The stream with my video got copyrighted, blocked for the music. Wait, which you like the video that you really? Like the video that you made of me got copyright blocked for which music? Did you put music in it that wasn't my music? Yeah, it's the social contract one, Sean. Let's see if we can find that. Because I think that like I tried to say some of that when I was talking before, but I think um, I don't know what I would look up. Might just be like whatever's on the Daily Show most recently. We can find the YouTube channel. Yeah, I think this is it.
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
Yeah, okay. This is 18 minutes long, so it's a little bit of a watch. But I don't know, and I don't know. I might comment a little bit on it, but I probably won't comment all that much. Um, the video with the Adobe one. Oh, the Wii channel music. Oh, shoot. I didn't realize that. We'll have to if you want to I don't know, if you want to replace that with something else. There's like you can probably find you can probably find a similar music to that on the YouTube copyright or like copyright free stuff. Also, if you want any of my stuff to like my music to fill that void, you can always do that. But here, right? Let's. I just want to. Yeah, we're gonna watch this. I don't know if I'll comment much.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? You know what's really interesting about what's happening in America right now is that a lot of people don't seem to realize how dominoes connect, how one piece knocks another piece that knocks another piece, and in the end creates a giant wave. Each story seems completely unrelated, and yet at the same time, I feel like everything that happens in the world connects to something else in some way, shape, or form. And I think this news cycle that we witnessed in the last week was a perfect example of that. Amy Cooper, George Floyd, and the people of Minneapolis. Amy Cooper was, for many people, I think, the catalyst. And by the way, I should mention that all of this is like against the backdrop of coronavirus. People stuck in their houses for one of the longest periods we can remember. People losing more jobs than anyone can ever remember. People struggling to make do more than they can ever remember. And I think all of that compounded by the fact that there seems to be no genuine plan from leadership. Like, no one knows what's going to happen. No one knows how long they're supposed to be good, how long they're supposed to stay inside, how long they're supposed to flatten the curve. No one knows any of these things. And so what happens is you have a group of people who are stuck inside. All of us as society, we're stuck inside. And we then start to consume. We see what's happening in the world. And I think Amy Cooper was one of the first moments that one of the first dominoes that we saw get knocked.
So if you haven't seen the Amy Cooper video, it's just this video where like a black guy is out bird watching, and he asks this lady to put her dog on a leash, because her dog's off the leash and is supposed to be on the leash, and she immediately goes to, I'm going to call 911 and tell them that there's a black man threatening my life in the park, and he caught it on video, and it's sort of like this, I don't know, Trevor and I will talk about it more, but it's like blatant example of someone sort of weaponizing their place in society, and the biases of society, specifically saying there is a black man threatening my life in the park, knowing the response that'll get, and like using that to say, back off and don't tell me what to do with my dog.
Knocked down post-corona for many people. And that was a world where you quickly realize that while everyone is facing the battle against coronavirus, black people in America are still facing the battle against racism and coronavirus. And the reason I say it's a domino is because think about how many black Americans just have read and seen the news of how black people are disproportionately affected by coronavirus. And not because of something inherently inside black people, but rather because of the lives black people have lived in America for so long. Coronavirus exposed all of it. And now here you had this woman who, we've all seen the video now, blatantly knew how to use the power of her whiteness to threaten the life of another man and his blackness. What we saw with her was a really, really powerful, explicit example of an understanding of racism in a structural way. When she looked at that man, when she looked at Cooper and she said to him, I'm going to call 911 and I'm going to tell them there's an African American man threatening my life. She knew how powerful that was. And that in itself is telling. It tells you how she perceives the police. It tells you how she perceives her perception or her relationship with the police as a white woman. It shows you how she perceives a black man's relationship with the police and the police's relationship with him. It was powerful. Because so many people act like they don't know what black Americans are talking about when they say it, and yet Amy Cooper had a distinct understanding. She was like, oh, I know that you're afraid of interacting with the police because there is a presumption of your guilt because of your blackness. I know that as a white woman, I can weaponize this tool against you, and I know that by the time we've sifted through who was right or wrong, there's a good chance that you will have lost in some way, shape, or form. And so for me, that was the first domino. And so now you're living in a world where so many people are watching this video, so many people are being triggered, because in many ways it was like a gotcha. It was like the curtain had been pulled back. Aha! So you do this because it's always been spoken about, but this was it was powerful to see it being used. And I think a lot of people were triggered by that. A lot of people were like, damn, we knew it was real, but this is like real, I think a lot of people also angry that some of the outrage that came to her was because of her dog. And I mean, I get it, but it was, a lot of people felt like it would have been great if the dog shelters had the same, I guess, power or if police departments were run by the people who run dog shelters, because they seem to act like this. They didn't waste time. They were like, nope, we'd like our dog back, lady. Which I'm going to be honest, I think was a hell of a punishment. Her job is one thing. Taking a white lady's dog, that was a nice dog. And so that was the first domino, It was the first domino where I felt like you could feel something stirring. And all of this, again, is in the backdrop. It's coronavirus has happened. The numbers have come out. The story of Ahmaud Arbery in Georgia, that story has come out. All of these things are happening. And then the video of George Floyd comes out. And I don't know what made that video more painful for people to watch. The fact that that man was having his life taken in front of our eyes, the fact that we're watching someone being murdered by someone whose job is to protect and serve, or the fact that he seemed so calm doing it, Oftentimes we always told that police feared for their life. It was like a threat. And you know what, you always feel like an asshole when you're like, you didn't fear for your life. Why did you fear for your life? How did you fear? But now more and more we're starting to see that it's like, no, it doesn't seem like there's a fear. It just seems like you can do it, so you did it. There was a black man on the ground in handcuffs, and you could take his life, so you did. Almost knowing that there would be no ramifications. And then again, everyone on the internet has to watch this. Everyone sees it. It floods our timelines as people. And I think one ray of sunshine for me in that moment was seeing how many people instantly condemned what they saw. You know, and maybe it's because I'm an optimistic person, but I don't think I've ever seen anything like that, especially not in America. I haven't seen a police video come out and just see across the board. I mean, even Fox News commentators and police chiefs from around the country immediately condemning what they saw. No questions, not what was he doing, not just going, no, what happened here was wrong. It was wrong. This person got murdered on camera. And then the police were fired. Great. But I think what people take for granted is how much for so many people that feels like nothing, you know? How many of us as human beings can take the life of another human being and then have firing be the worst thing that happens to us? And yes, we don't know where the case will go, don't get me wrong, but it feels like there is no moment of justice. There is no, you know, if you're watching a movie, you'd at least want the cops, you'd want to see the perpetrators in handcuffs. You'd want to see the perpetrators facing some sort of justice. Yes, they might come out on bail, etc., but I think there's a lot of catharsis that comes with seeing that justice being doled out. When the riots happened, that for me was an interesting culmination of everything. I saw so many people online saying, these riots are disgusting. This is not how a society should be run. You do not loot and you do not burn and this is not how our society is built. And that actually triggered something in me where I was like, man, okay, society. But what is society? And fundamentally, when you boil it down, society is a contract. It's a contract that we sign as human beings amongst each other. We sign a contract with each other as people, whether it's spoken or unspoken, and we say, amongst this group of us, we agree in common rules, common ideals, and common practices that are going to define us as a group. That's what I think a society is. It's a contract. And as with most contracts, the contract is only as strong as the people who are abiding by it.
Bye, Sophios. Thanks for being here.
But if you think of being a black person in America who is living in Minneapolis or Minnesota or any place where you're not having a good time, ask yourself this question when you watch those people. What vested interest do they have in maintaining the contract? Why don't we all loot? Why doesn't everybody take? Because we've agreed on things. There are so many people who are starving out there. There's so many people who don't have. There are people who are destitute. There are people who, when the virus hit and they don't have a second paycheck, already broke, which is insane, but that's the reality. But still, think about how many people who don't have, the have-nots, say, you know what, I'm still going to play by the rules even though I have nothing, because I still wish for this society to work and exist. And then some members of that society, namely black American people, watch time and time again how the contract that they have signed with society is not being honored by the society that has forced them to sign it with them. When you watch Ahmaud Arbery being shot and you hear that those men have been released, and were it not for the video and the outrage, those people would be living their lives, what part of the contract is that in society? When you see George Floyd on the ground and you see a man losing his life in a way that no person should ever have to lose their life, at the hands of someone who's supposed to enforce the law, what part of the contract is that? And a lot of people say, well, what good does this do? Yeah, but what good doesn't it do? That's the question people don't ask the other way around. What good does it do to loot Target? How does it help you to loot Target? Yeah, but how does it help you to not loot Target? Answer that question. Because the only reason you didn't loot Target before was because you were upholding society's contract. There is no contract if law and people in power don't uphold their end of it. And that's the thing I think people don't understand sometimes, is that we need people at the top to be the most accountable, because they are the ones who are basically setting the tone and the tenor for everything that we do in society. It's the same way we tell parents to set an example for their kids, the same way we tell captains or coaches to set an example for their players, the same way you tell teachers to set an example for their students. The reason we do that is because we understand in society that if you lead by example, there is a good chance that people will follow that example that you have set. And so if the example law enforcement is setting is that they do not adhere to the laws, then why should the citizens of that society adhere to the laws when in fact the law enforcers themselves don't? There's a really fantastic chapter in Malcolm Gladwell's book, David and Goliath, where he talks about the principles. What is it? He talks about the principles of legitimacy. And he says, in order for us to argue that any society or any legal body or any power is legitimate, we have to agree on core principles. And those 3 principles, if I remember correctly, is number 1, we have to agree on what the principles are. Number 2, we have to believe that the people who are enforcing the principles are going to enforce them fairly. And number 3, we have to agree that everyone in that society is going to be treated fairly according to those principles. It is safe to say in this 1 week alone, and maybe even from the beginning of coronavirus really blowing out in America, Black Americans have seen their principles completely delegitimized. Because if you're a Black person in America right now and you're watching this, if you're a Black American person specifically and you're watching this, what principles are you seeing? I think sometimes the thing we need to remember, and it's something I haven't remembered my whole life. You start to learn these things, you know, when you travel the world, when you read, when you learn about society, I think, is that like when you are a have and when you are a have-not, you see the world in very different ways. And a lot of the time people say to the have-nots, this is not the right way to handle things. When Colin Kaepernick kneels, they say this is not the right way to protest. When Martin Luther King had children as part of his protest in Birmingham, Alabama, people said having children as your protest is not the right way to do things. When he marched in Selma, people said this is not the right way to do things. When people marched through the streets in South Africa during apartheid, they said this is not the right way to do things. When people burn things, they say it's never the right way, because there is never a right way to protest. And I've said this before, there is no right way to protest, because that's what protest is. It cannot be right because you are protesting against a thing that is stopping you. And so I think what a lot of people don't realize is the same way you might have experienced even more anger and more just visceral disdain watching those people loot that Target. Think to yourselves, or maybe it would help you if you think about that unease that you felt watching that Target being looted. Try to imagine how it must feel for Black Americans when they watch themselves being looted every single day. Because that's fundamentally what's happening in America. Police in America are looting Black bodies. And I know someone might think that's an extreme phrase, but it's not, because here's the thing I think a lot of people don't realize. George Floyd died. That is part of the reason the story became so big, is because he died. But how many George Floyds are there that don't die? How many men are having knees put on their necks? How many Sandra Blands are out there being tossed around? It doesn't make the news because it's not grim enough. It doesn't even get us enough anymore. It's only the deaths, the gruesome deaths that stick out. But imagine to yourself, if you grew up in a community where every day someone had their knee on your neck, where every day somebody was out there oppressing you every single day. You tell me what that does to you as a society, as a community, as a group of people. And when you know that this is happening because of the color of your skin, not because the people are saying it's happening because of the color of your skin, but rather because it is only happening to you and you're the only people who have that skin color. And I know there's people who say, yeah, but like, well, how come black people don't care when black people kill? But man, that's one of the dumbest arguments ever. Of course they care. If you've ever been to a hood anywhere, not just in America, but anywhere in the world, you'd know how much black people care about that. If you know anything about under-policing and over-policing, though, you would understand how that comes to be. The police show black people how valuable their lives are considered by the society. And so then those people who live in those communities know how to or not deal with those lives. Because best believe, if you kill a white person, especially in America, there is a whole lot more justice than is coming your way than if you killed some black body in a black neighborhood somewhere. And so to anyone who watched that video, don't ask yourself if it's right or wrong to loot, or don't ask yourself, wow, what does looting help? No. Ask yourself that question. Ask yourself why it got you that much more watching these people loot, because they were destroying the contract that you thought they had signed with your society. And now think to yourself, imagine if you were them watching that contract being ripped up every single day. Ask yourself how you'd feel. One of the craziest unexpected side effects of corona is probably...
So, I don't know. I think that speaks for itself. I don't know if I have anything to put on top of that. It really does. Like, one of the good things about this is that it does really seem like, I don't know, there's a lens on this time around in a way that there wasn't the last time. And like the internationality of it, like the way Lyrical, you're talking about, like the protests in Amsterdam. I mean, there were people protesting in Montreal yesterday. There have been all these, like, on Twitter. There've been all these K-pop accounts that have been discovering the Black Lives Matter movement, and it's like, it's really sweet in a way. It's these like K-pop stan accounts that are like sharing with each other. Oh, did you see what's going on in America? Yeah. Let's go to the daily discussion. Yeah, I mean, what's the last world event, like political event, that had like this level of like sympathetic protest around the world? Was it like the Arab Spring? I mean, I definitely didn't see this level with Hong Kong. I saw a lot of international people talking about it. Yeah, maybe Hong Kong. I don't know. I didn't see. I never saw the internet explode to the level that it has here. I don't know if it's like it's not entirely novel. Like I think something like this, like apartheid was this scale, at least. I think like the yeah, I think the apartheid protest lasted much longer than this has so far, right? Lean on Me. Is Lean on Me Bill Withers? I thought it was older than Bill Withers, but maybe it is. Somebody tell me that. Because I thought that was an older song than Bill Withers, but maybe I'm wrong. Daily discussion. Here's our daily discussion. Should we have music? We're not gonna do music. We're just gonna go for it. Written by Bill Withers. Okay. Oh, all right. Man, Bill Withers. I keep finding songs that are by him that I didn't realize that were by him because they're such. Because they're so like pervasive. They're like, you know, there's sometimes a song will a song is like it feels like it's a fundamental part of your society. Lean on Me feels like one of those. Let's see. So Zach is asking in the daily discussion. A rendition was so Stevie, was it? I gotta. I mean, to be honest, I gotta. Yeah, exactly, Zach. Bill Withers. I gotta just like look at. I gotta front load everything that he's written because I keep not realizing. I guess he had a gift for making songs that become timeless. Let's see. So, what are your discussions for rules for this server? Be as specific or non-specific as possible. Covering all your bases there, Zach. Let's see. So, Gumbledolf has an XKCD image. Pretty sure it's XKCD. I'll put this in a non-specific category. Let's see. What does XKCD say about rules? Once you've sent a typing notification, you have to say something. Come on. Fair. 2, show you care by trimming the tracking junk off links you paste. 3, do not talk about Fight Club, 1999, the movie. 4, there are 2 types of chats, those with a relevant group name and those where the name is random nonsense that changes regularly. Only the second kind are good. Whoa. We got a problem. We've got a normal name in our chat. 5, when mentioning it elsewhere, always just refer to it as the group chat to create an aura of exclusive mystery. 6, Robert's rules of order are optional but encouraged. I don't know what those are. 7, oh, Sean, did you get banned for only being moderately specific? That sucks. We were going to implement, in the rules some sort of escalating, like warn to mute to kick to ban sort of setup, but in your case, straight out, you don't get to come back. Sorry. Periodically, the group will split off to form a new chat with everyone minus one person. This is how group chats reproduce. Don't draw attention to it. It's probably probably true of group chats and a little awkward. 8. Since there's no algorithmic feed, the responsibility for injecting lots of garbage no one asked for falls on you. 9. The enumeration of in these rules of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. 10. Sorry about all the notifications. All right. Well, there's XKCD. Let's see what people had to say. RRF 86. Be aware of your cognitive biases at all times and ensure that they do not interfere with your ability to have an open and productive discourse with others. That's a good guideline. Oh, is the 9 a reference to the Constitution? Atre says no kneecaps for transphobes and homophobes. I don't understand what that is. That a metaphor? In other words, I will disfigure anyone who attacks my LGBT fam around here. Actually, I think that's going to go against my rule of not threatening violence to people. But we will definitely have things in here about bigotry and transphobia and homophobia. But let's not be disfiguring people. I would say, Mad Mojo Monkey, because yeah. Mad Mojo Monkey says, be kind, be respectful to everyone. If you were disrespectful, apologize and don't do it again. Yeah. Let the person you spoke to determine where the line of respect and disrespect are. Yes. I think that's my general rule. Like, in general, I would be very lax on enforcing rules until, I don't know, like, I understand. I don't know. I would be lax on enforcing rules in a context where, like, definitely everybody who is in the conversation, it's within the bounds of what they want. The tricky thing is sort of like passersby. So I think there should, I don't know. We need to encourage people to, like, if they are uncomfortable, don't be uncomfortable in silence. Like, say something. Sean Ale says, "Can I be unbanned for my moderately specific response, please?" Fine, Sean. We'll let you back for now, but don't do it again. Incredibly specific or completely unspecific only. Sophios says, "Be supportive of other people and don't shoot them down." Yeah, so for example, Atre with this one, like, you may find that someone comes in from a culture that has not very much experience with trans people or like gay people, and it, like, I don't know, it's gonna, like, we have to figure out as a group, because it would be nice to not have someone come in from another culture, say, I don't know, like a pick your culture that is less liberal than liberal cultures, and it would be nice to have that person land and be able to have a conversation and figure out, like, I don't know, like, figure out this stuff. And that's going to that's what I mean about being gracious. Like, there needs to be like a measure of grace. Zach says, actually, that happened when Kovu came out to us, and it ended up being handled very well. That's good. I haven't seen that bit of the chat. Yeah, but, like, they have to do it respectfully, and if they're doing it disrespectfully, and they don't realize that they're being disrespectful, the first step is, hey, you're being disrespectful. Like, not as a universal axiom, but, like, to me right now in this conversation, and that's what matters. Let's try to find a way that we can Oh, understand. And then like if someone is not willing to listen to you and is just there to troll and cause trouble, it usually manifests itself pretty quickly, right? Like even in the case of Baba a few streams ago, like that was when I was walking out there. Like that was a difficult situation, and I think because there was no real person in a position of authority, like within the chat, and Baba was a newcomer to the group. He didn't seem to respect anyone's. But like when I said, "Hey, like stop it," he did stop, right? I know, but I understand there's a limit to what you can deal with every day, and I don't know. We have to find a balance. Yeah. Sophia says, be supportive of people and don't shoot them down. If you disagree or have criticisms, choose your words carefully so that others don't misunderstand you. Valderg says, I generally favor a less is more approach to rules. An extensive list of rules with detailed explanations and examples likely can't account for every scenario. Yeah. Bad faith actors are unfortunately skilled at finding gaps in the rules and exploiting them, but keeping the rules more general, lots of good examples here, no racism, sexism, bigotry, etc., gives the mods more freedom to follow the spirit of the law instead of the letter. Whatever route this ends up taking, having competent, respected mods to enforce the rules is the best safeguard against bad faith actors. If we can trust the mods, to make correct decisions, I think any kind of rules can work. Yeah. I think that's true. I like one of the in my like rules document that I still haven't done anything to. My last rule was these rules have gaps in them, but we're not stupid. So we're going to try to fill in the gaps. In cases where the rules don't apply, there will still be judgment calls, and we'll have to talk about them and rely on intuition. I mean, yeah, I'm a pretty big fan of like sort of common law type lawmaking where your entire law system is based out of solutions you had to actual problems, right? And then you avoid making rules that weren't necessary, and I don't know, you make rules that are actually specific to the specific people that you're trying to have a good time. Yeah, I don't know what's up with VLC. It just really wants my attention. I don't know why. Yeah, it's gone. It's gone now. Now update available. It's just this computer is a mess. One of these days we'll do Tim reinstalls Windows on stream. Yeah, the taskbar is full, but a lot of these things aren't actually open. Like these are just like I just have these down there to be opened up because I like to have them right on hand. I can stream from my phone I have 2 computers running. I've got my laptop down here and my desktop that you're seeing. It requires another impromptu guest to troubleshoot. Yeah, who's really good with Windows? Yeah, so Not really a normal one. We'll probably do a more normal one tomorrow. I think I'm going to do a Twitch stream today. We're gonna go back and look at the keep mixing the thing. Oh yeah, you got your names. Mods are all there on the Discord. No Discord for you. We're gonna get that loops back. Ha. No, you can have your after party. I think I'm gonna take a break. I'm gonna come up here at 6 on Twitch. When you're not strong, and I'll be a friend. I'll help you carry on. For it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on me. When you're not strong, then I'll be a friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. Thanks for everyone for being here today. Give me your names again. Thank you for the offer of joining the chat. I think I'm gonna do it another time. I need a break. And I need to check on my roommate. He's had a very sleepy day. Thanks, Kovu, Alice, A.A. Bowser, Emma Lyrical, Daniela Guerrero, Jan Hoffman, Ref86, Jonathan Haywood, Bratislava, Zach, Laura Shearer, Noah Jessic, Peter Noddle, Amguzian, Philippa Beckman, on Twitch we got The Alley Walker, HGT Waves, Catherine of course, Ari Lada, Bryce Schober, Ann Smith, Sean Ale. You're welcome. Bye, guys. It won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. See you, friends. Oop. How do I turn this off?